One of the best things about college football is its uncanny ability to create some of the dumbest moments that you will ever witness in sports. From players making baffling decisions that leave you speechless, to head coaches seemingly doing everything they can to throw away wins, the sport just has a way of creating some of the craziest and dumbest moments of all time. So let's have a little bit of fun and go back and look at a few of the dumbest in-game coaching decisions in recent college football history. So we'll start off with what is in all likelihood the dumbest attempt to ice the kicker in the history of football. Allow me to set the scene. Virginia Tech had just tied the game with just under a minute to play, and they were on the verge of forcing overtime in their bid to upset the 25th ranked Liberty Flames. All they had to do was hold out for a mere 52 seconds. However, this turned out to be a task that the Hokies defense had almost zero will to accomplish. Thus, Malik Willis would drive Liberty into Virginia Tech territory where they would set up for a 59-yard field goal in an attempt to win the game. Now, for those who don't remember, let me remind you that the Liberty kicker had yet to attempt a field goal of 50+ yards on the season, and he was just one of 3 on kicks longer than 40 yards. So sit back and watch as Hokies head coach Justin Fuente does the dumbest thing possible.
Alex Barbier is going to give it everything he's got for the win. And it's blocked.
Whoa.
It's blocked and picked up. It's picked up by Jermaine Waller. He'll score for the Hokies.
Their third and final of the half. 30-second timeout.
.51 officially for the win for Alex Barbier. This one is up. Does it have the distance? It does!
Every now and then, even the greatest of head coaches can sometimes be caught making the dumbest of mistakes. There are very few better examples of that than Kirby Smart's fake punt against Alabama in the 2018 SEC Championship game. Now, to set the scene here, Georgia had blown a 2-touchdown lead to the Tide in the second half of the contest. Before scoring the game-tying touchdown, the Alabama offense would put together a long 16-play drive that completely gassed the Bulldogs' defense. Georgia, meanwhile, would reach midfield on their next possession before their drive would eventually stall out, leaving them facing a 4th and 11 from the 50-yard line. So with Kirby not wanting to give the ball back to the red-hot Alabama offense, he would attempt to fool his former employer by sneaking true freshman backup quarterback Justin Fields out onto the field with his punting unit. The play would go on to backfire in spectacular fashion, with Fields being dropped near the line of scrimmage. However, had he been able to keep his eyes up, there may have been a chance for this play to succeed. But either way you choose to look at it, it was an incredibly dumb play call that severely hurt their chances to win the game. Meanwhile, the Tide just kept on rolling, as a few moments later, they were celebrating the game-winning touchdown in the end zone as Georgia fans sat stunned at everything that had just unfolded in front of them. And to add insult to injury, the Tide would go on to beat the Bulldogs again in the national title game just over a month later. But if there were ever a singular moment to describe Kirby Smart's uncanny ability to unravel against his former team, it would be that incredibly stupid fake punt from the 2018 SEC title game. Our next incredibly dumb moment came from one of the true goats of dumb coaching decisions in Les Miles. Now obviously, Les has a ton of these moments that you could choose from over the years, but for this video, we're just going to look back at his complete unraveling from the final moments of the LSU Ole Miss game from 2009. Now in this particular case, Les had just watched his team squander a 9-point lead, and suddenly they found themselves in the middle of a desperate comeback attempt in the game's final moments. Trailing by 8, the Tigers would go on a 10-play drive that would end with Jordan Jefferson finding Ruben Randall for a 25-yard touchdown strike that would cut the lead to 2. So what does LSU decide to call with the game hanging in the balance, needing a successful 2-point conversion attempt? Well, of course, they would call a fade route to the corner of the end zone, one of the dumbest calls in all of football. But as one would expect, the Tigers would get bailed out by the Rebels DB, who got absolutely cooked off the line. I mean, just look at this, and then he proceeds to make it even worse by committing pass interference. I mean, what are we even doing here? So what does LSU choose to do with their newfound lease on life? Well, of course, they would completely butcher the protection, leading to a desperation back foot heave by Jefferson that would fall incomplete. And they just so happened to call that stupid ass fade route one more time. So the game would come down to a single onside kick, which, as you could have guessed, LSU would go on to recover because the football gods were not done tormenting them just yet. It would take just 2 snaps for LSU to get themselves into field goal range thanks to a screen pass to Brandon LaFell that would pick up 26 yards. This would give the Tigers a brand new set of downs from the Rebs' 32-yard line with just a minute left on the clock. Now, a normal team with a normal coaching staff would choose to play it safe and try to set up a field goal for the win. But this was Les Miles' LSU Tigers, who were anything but normal, which led to an all-time catastrophic collapse. On first down, the Tigers would throw an incompletion that would stop the clock. Then, on the following down, they would proceed to take a sack that would push them out of field goal range. However, they still felt that things were not difficult enough, so they would call a screen pass on third down that would get completely blown up, putting them 26 yards behind the sticks. But Les Miles, using his infinite clock managing wisdom, felt for whatever reason there was just simply too much time left on the clock. So of course, like any rational person would do in this situation, he proceeds to let an additional 17 seconds run off of the clock before choosing to call his final timeout with just 9 seconds left in the game. So now LSU was facing a 4th and 26 from midfield with no timeouts, and of course, Les had one final dumb move left up his sleeve.
Jefferson is nailed as he lets it go. It's caught! Tolliver with 1 second left.
Get your field goal team on. You have to get your field goal team on.
Oh my gosh!
You don't have time to ground the ball.
Terrence Tolliver, and here, what are they doing?
You don't have time to ground the ball.
What are they doing?
Play. Game over.
Now look, this entire sequence was just pure comedy from start to finish, but the ending is undoubtedly the best part of the entire thing. First off, there was just 1 second left on the clock, so running your kicking team out onto the field likely would have ended with the clock running out anyhow, so Gary Danielson was just yelling pure nonsense as usual. This meant that due to LSU's appalling clock management skills, the only real option that they were left with would be to throw the ball into the end zone. But the most egregious part of this entire thing is that they actually had more time than usual to communicate that fact to the players on the field, as the crew operating the sticks took forever to get down there, likely having thought the game was already over. But the stupidity wouldn't end there, as things would continue to get worse just moments after the game, when Miles would go on to have one of the worst post-game interviews of all time.
Last play, how come you didn't try for the field goal?
We couldn't get it lined up fast enough. You know, we knew we were going to run out of time. That was the issue. We probably had to call. We're trying to get the field goal team on. They were down there under. We could not have spiked it, certainly.
So at this point, Les had already built up quite the resume for dumbest head coaching disasters of all time. But somehow, this whole situation would proceed to get even worse, as during his post-game press conference, Les would go on to claim that he never called for the spike to take place. Apparently, old Les forgot that the game was being nationally televised and that there would likely be a camera focused in his direction at such a crucial moment of the contest. As long as you are not an LSU fan, this is easily one of the most hilarious coaching disasters that you will ever see, and the failed cover-up after the fact just adds the cherry on top to the pure stupidity and madness of the whole situation. Now this brings us to the dumbest moment of this video, and it comes via an all-time great in the clock management world in Mario Cristobal. Now for this one, we're going to give 2 examples from Mario's coaching career where he somehow made the exact same mistake 2 separate times, costing his team crucial victories. The first of such moments came back in 2018 when Cristobal was the head coach of the Oregon Ducks. Now on this incredibly dumb night, Mario's Oregon squad would go on to blow a 24-7 lead in the second half to the Stanford Cardinal. But the worst part of the entire thing was that the Ducks had picked up a crucial first down with just over 2 minutes left on the clock. Now at this point, Stanford was down to just 1 timeout, and remember, there was no 2-minute warning back in these days. Now in this situation, the Ducks had 2 main options. One, they could have taken a knee and forced Stanford to use their final timeout before draining most of the clock with their other downs. This would have left Stanford with less than 20 seconds to drive into field goal range from at the very least their own 20-yard line. Or the Ducks could keep running the ball and try to ice the game with another first down. They chose the latter option, and it went on to end in pure disaster with a fumble eventually leading to a Stanford field goal to tie the game. And as you probably could have guessed, the Cardinal would go on to finish the job in overtime. Now this moment is somewhat defensible given the strategy of not wanting to allow the other team to possess the ball for even a single play, but it needed to be included as it was the precursor to Cristobal's true magnum opus. So let's fast forward a few years to 2023, where Cristobal would somehow one-up that epic collapse with one of the dumbest decisions in the history of college football. Once again, Mario's squad, now the Miami Hurricanes, was desperately holding on to a 3-point lead in the waning moments of the contest. In this particular case, Miami would pick up what seemed to be a game-sealing first down with just under 2 minutes left in the game and Georgia Tech only having 1 more timeout. So in this scenario, the Canes easily could have run out the clock by taking a few knees and moving on with their night. Plus, unlike with the last example, they wouldn't even have to punt the ball back to the other team. There was literally zero reason to put the ball in harm's way. So what did Mario and his infinite clock managing wisdom choose to do? Roll the tape.
Here's Chaney, just straight ahead, tackled, and the ball popped out.
You gotta read the clock. Read the card. To me,
Georgia Tech has it with 26 seconds left.
Way down the field.
3 to the field for King. Up in the pocket, gonna loop it down the field, and it is caught! And that's Rutherford, who hangs on to it in Miami territory.
What happened with 10 seconds on the clock? Everything has to be working the sidelines because I don't believe you've got enough time to get to
Singleton, the fastest of the receivers, to the top of the screen. Here's King from the pocket, flush to his right with 6, 5, gonna loop it downfield, and ball is caught! Touchdown, Georgia Tech!